now switch to the next presentation, which is about planning with virtual reality lighting solution by Wolfgang Bernecker from Germany. Is the speaker ready?
I think I am.
All right. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. A wonderful, late good morning. I hope you see already my screen, which says "Welcome to the Virtual Lab" in parallel. I've decided in the morning that we skip the whole theoretical part about VR planning and whatever. We kind of just show you what we've done for DOL and for Gate 21 as part of the LUCIA project. So can you give me quick feedback if you're seeing my screen? Okay,
yes,
excellent.
Yeah.
And what we are doing in here is, let's say I have always had the dream to be able to share when I go with my customers, to think about how can I change lighting instead of showing pictures which are static, because daylight is dynamic. So I wanted to be able, so I clicked on the clock and it now changes for another 8 hours of the day. It shows a different aspect. It shows that the lighting goes into here in that room. You see the sun going down here over the living lab in DOL. We are at the control room at DOL in a virtual environment. And I can click on a luminaire and I change my brightness and my color temperature alongside with it. And I can talk a long time about color temperatures, 2,500 or 6,000 Kelvin, and what that means and how that links to people and what this is an advantage. But if people just see it and grab it, that makes it so much easier. And that's the reason why we've started to work with differences elements, and we are using that as an interactive aspect. There's a small risk involved in that presentation to go live into the object. There's a special software we have for guest and host modes so that we can play around with it and you have a full good frames per second impression. So if it gets pixelated, just interrupt me. And we might go to the backbone scenario which we have prepared on that. We can jump to different positions, walk through and just change things. And again, always the same topic comes back. I can change my colors, my aspects in such a room and see what that means. And as well as potentially, it does not reflect too much this bluish light on the table. But the interesting thing is if I'm going into a flight mode, if I'm going out of the building, if I'm returning round, we see that the blue light has a big impact from a distance perspective, and that's what DOL likes about that aspect and knows about it and plays around with it. Now, cool that we talked about indoor lighting and whatever, but I think, and I wanted to show you firsthand of what is possible today with solutions. All of that, what I'm showing is open source. Costs no money, it's just available. It just needs a little bit of a competence to get that sorted through. And we are not an agency, we are a consultancy company. I'm heading that consultancy company to make sure that these kind of solutions are available to people. So I've moved to one of these bicycle paths where Sorin was talking about it beforehand. And again, can change my daytime, but I can change as well my season. And that makes a big difference if we go to the nighttime now. If I'm changing towards winter and I'm losing my leaves, it's a complete different picture than looking at it in summer times. And that's for me very important because a lot of pilot installations are usually looked at in winter because it's getting darker earlier, you're getting the group better together. And that's where that is then looked at. And suddenly in summer, you potentially have is the same solution, a completely different picture or another topic regarding maintenance. So it's the same with heights and aluminium and if the luminaire is black. So we would like to play a little bit around with it. Now that's the first step of having such a tool available and BIM and everything else and the online gaming industry has given us a good opportunity to play really around with it and have that in correct lighting distributions and using the data of manufacturers correctly in these scenarios. Now, what we can do as an add-on to that is we can now animate specific ideas. Now, here we are in a section at the Nova Lumia area. And what we can see in here is as well is we are looking at a scenario which it is potentially a bright, nice summer day in August. And we have now a cloud coming up. So a dark cloud, thunderstorm comes alongside with it. It is potentially coming alongside with it a little bit of lightning and rain, and it's getting darker and darker, and suddenly the light goes on. And we see as well when the road is getting wet how the lighting distribution changes completely. You might see that when it comes, the lighting distribution stays the same, but the way how we perceive the lighting about the specularity and the materiality of the roads, that's different. And that's what we can see. And when the rain stops, you see how it goes back to dry conditions. And I love that we have these opportunities of having wet and dry conditions and seeing that. But I love as well that the lighting switched on in very dark environments. Now, again, this is something where the parameters have to be set. The systems are available to do that, but people could do that beforehand. And we can easily ask participants, citizens, do you like that or do you not like that? We can as well modify luminaire. So if I say my pole should have 2 heads in here, or if we say we would have the bracket length a little bit longer down the road, that helps me quite a long while. And then if I go to another scenario, I see it's still adapted there. And I can see now I'm changing daylight over the time and see, does this lighting level, does this fit? Should we potentially change that? Should it go a little bit longer, the bracket? Should the bracket on the bicycle paths go a bit lower? Are the distances correct between the different luminaires? And again, we give people impressions about that. As I've won the tender to make that virtual lab, it's down to Teddy and Sif and the rest of the team to talk about the costs, but you might be quite surprised that all of these tools, as I said, is open source and whatever, is quite easily to be used in daily business. Now, if we continue a little bit on towards it, there's a completely different topic. We are talking here about lighting. We are not changing the hour. We are just changing at the moment the day. So we have always 6 o'clock at that picture. We are changing the results December, January, February, one day, 15 days in a second. And we see how the lighting is now going down according to the elevation of the sun. Now, the question is always, should the lighting switch on always at 5 o'clock or at 6 o'clock or at 7 o'clock, depending on the geographical position? Or should we have a system which works according to elevation of the sun and then kicks in at the right lighting levels? Again, that's something to be discussed. The simulation can always give you a hint and an idea about how these things work, but it is not, it's not saying that the one is better than the other. It depends on the scenario and the solution on how that should be solved. Or the other topic is how should we include traffic into it? Now, we are here at a different scenario. We have here the programmer. By the way, we've put the programmer in here to make it visible. The scenario from Lacroix in here could be used as well remotely, so that you don't have one person standing below each luminaire and program that. The important is they have to understand, is it more for pedestrians, is it more for cars, or is it more for bicycles? And then they set the parameters in here. We've now chosen the car scenario. So on the car scenario, if we go on, we are down in the evening. And again, we can fly and as well we can elevate to see that a little bit better. A radar is coming and we are taking a car. It depicts the car and we see how the light goes on. It is completely different if we plan the whole thing with a priority on pedestrians and different scenarios. So again, we have the opportunity to look at different aspects and see as well, not only like how it is done, but we can always see the different scenarios, going back to looking at energy efficiency, looking back on how it's installed, and seeing all of these things coming together. Back into my virtual world, I'm going to another stretch. When we talked about now, should the lighting be on during the day because of dark scenarios? Should it be on because of astronomical scenarios? Should it be on differently depending on elevation of the sun? Whatever. There's another scenario which I think Signify showcases at DOL. And that scenario is a lot about having a color outside on the luminaires. So when a bus is arriving, the color outside, which is now very much dimmed, is potentially yellow. The green line is arriving, the bus. And when the bus is arriving with the green line, it changes to the color and then afterwards to the next one. So it's an easy, very distant aspect of how to communicate with lighting and lighting colors towards the people living and working there, and giving them an indication if they are late, if they should work on for another half an hour, or if they should quickly go and grab some food or drink because the next bus is coming in 30 minutes or whatever. Again, this is helpful information. I'm not saying that that's always the right thing, but it's good to have these scenarios looking at it. Using the same color scenarios for an accident element, whether that comes via someone calling the police, as a lady in here, and the police says, okay, I'm seeing an accident. Before my people arrive, rescue service arrives, we put the color out there, and having blinking elements on the color out there on like red lighting, and having then full lighting and bluish potentially at the accident place, or if there's an emergency button. Again, different technology scenarios who can deal with that. When we talk about traffic, we talked about these stretch of land. That's what we said with the live tunnel, and again, we can then use the same scenario as we said beforehand, and Surin said their light tunnel is like 3 luminaires to the front and the back, but they can set the parameters, and again we can look at different scenarios, follow different people which we are just spawning into it with different speeds, and then seeing again, that's not what we want, then seeing again how much in front should that person see, and we can give that person a camera so that we see it as well from that person's perspective at different times throughout the day, a night, and whatever. For participatory design, for saying this is the way how it should be, that's an easy aspect. The same thing is we've offered the energy efficiency alongside with it. So we see the energy efficiency of that approach always and saying, okay, what does that mean for the slow person? How much should he have on light? How much should the person go if it's quicker? How much should a bicycle have? Whatever. Another, and I think the final idea I showed today is how that could be used as well as different light colors. So again, we look at the energy efficiency side. We're seeing that how the light is going down over time. We are now down to 4 to 5 frames per second. For a computer game, that's not okay. For a simulation, I would believe that's okay. We still can get a good idea about how it's changing overnight, and then as well how lighting and lighting colors would adapt to it, and if that fits throughout the day or the night, and what color would be the right thing to do. Very simple to change, very simple to adapt, very simple in participatory design aspects, in parameter design, as well in introduction. One of the nice things we have at the DOL virtual lab, if you're going there and seeing it live, whenever you change that luminaire, you will see that the luminaire in the room changes as well. So there is opportunities for pilots as well to take algorithms in the virtual world, build it in the real world, and then continue. So a lot of things which I looked at, not so much about VR classes. We love VR classes, and there are lovely things to do. And again, at DOL, you can see how we would use virtual classes in it. But usually people are blown away by technology and not so much focusing on decision and lighting. So usually we work more on normal screens and talk about the content instead of technology, because I think that's a better way of making decisions. And by using these tools, we believe that helps making decisions, that helps integrate people, that helps to understand as well the importance of parameters and just to get the right system sorted. And as well to tell people and customers and check the system afterwards at maintenance if they are doing what was planned beforehand. So hopefully that was in time.
Thanks a lot. We're just on time, so if at all possible, stay with us, and later on we have a session for questions and discussion.
The question was, how do a municipality get the opportunity to use a virtual reality solution as you just presented?
Yeah, I think the best thing would be to get a quick understanding about the tools out there. I think I'm one of the people who are using it. We have decided together with Stoll to go that path as well, to recommend that, how to use it. The tools are available out there, so that's open source. It just needs a little bit of training to get into it. But it's quite amazing today. You can get something like, I've just yesterday, not yesterday, on Monday, I've just downloaded Copenhagen, open source, and you get in an hour a good place, and you can just implement it and then very quickly use that. I think the best way I can give is getting access to people who understand these sort of tools. The basic tool behind it is Unreal Engine. It's an online gaming system used in the background, which is used for Hollywood films, but as well for simulations nowadays and for online games. And yeah, there's no one straightforward way. Lots of opportunities.
All right, thank you. Also, there's another question because you have shown many different interesting scenarios and cases. But the question is related to also what part of this is objective and subjective, and especially when it comes to the subjective part, how to actually integrate that as part of the overall process, because maybe not all of it can be measured technically, and maybe some effects or even color of light or glare and so on and so forth depends on perception from different persons. Do you have a possible answer or comment about this?
We have just recently done a workshop with the city of Ulm about participatory design in an area where a lot of people discuss since 20 years very differently, because in the evening a lot of young people are there in a very bad lit environment, which is throughout the day touristic, but in the evening very individually, and a lot of people are afraid of going there. Also, security-wise, it's not a place where we see it's all down to a feeling of being unsafe, a little bit like the tunnel example beforehand. And we were able, we started that participatory meeting with a very clear two frontiers, people left and right, and talking about, it has to be like this and it has to be like that. And the moment we showed that tool, everyone else, and then started them to rate these scenarios, we came to solutions. And I talked about technology and what that is used to. So that's what I call participatory design, because people potentially don't understand when I talk about IES and about 6,500 Kelvin. That is not for everyone, but seeing the picture and understand what that means, and seeing then a person walking through that area and seeing if the face is illuminated or not, that makes a difference. And as I said beforehand, we can switch from the virtual world to a real luminaire, because in the virtual world you can't get glare. You only have that glare of the brightness of the screen, but then you can put the real luminaire next to it, so you can compare both scenarios.
All right,
and that makes it easy.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments about this important question.